Hello and good morning from New York. My name is Frida Weisel. For those who don't know, this is my channel where I often explore Hasidic Judaism. I am going to do a brief live today to share my thoughts and hear your thoughts about today's opinion documentary in the New York Times titled uh, We Had Never Touched, Then Came Our Wedding Night by the Israeli filmmaker Rachel Elitzur. I'll just take a minute to wait to see that everything is working okay with the live stream and that some of you are up and around to keep me company and chat with me before I get started. Good morning. Greetings to you all. I was on jury duty and had to keep my time free for a while, not knowing how long the jury duty will take. Yesterday, I was dismissed. For some reason, the lawyers didn't want me on the case, which happened with quite a lot of the people in the pool. And so my day is free. And I decided to do a live stream because this morning the New York Times published an opinion documentary on a subject that I have explored on my channel quite a few times. The subject of intimacy after a very religious modesty and um, bashfulness oriented childhood. The subject of when you grow up in Orthodox Judaism, the genders are very separated, sex is not discussed, and then marriages are set up and expected to be consummated on the wedding night and the effects of that. I've explored this in several ways. One of them by reading to you a full sex ed lesson from a groom teacher to a groom weeks before his wedding. I got my hands on one of those and I didn't want to out the groom teacher. So I just wrote it down, translated it from Yiddish to English. It's 25 to 30 minutes. And I then read it, and it goes through the entire wedding night, teaching the young man how to behave through the wedding night, culminating with sex on the wedding night and some of the more graphic details I left out, although I have it on my blog, but most of it is there. And that was really fascinating to read, to explore, to share, and to see feedback on it. I also have interviewed an intimacy coach, Peggy Greenfeld, who is herself from the Williamsburg Hasidic community and works a lot with this population. And I did an interview with the Israeli documentary filmmaker Rachel Elitzur about a documentary titled The Wedding Night that is like an hour and something, and it explores the wedding night for Orthodox Jewish couples. Rachel Elitzur is herself from an Orthodox, I think, yeshivish community, much more liberal than the world that I come from. But that reflects my bias of what I consider liberal. I think a lot of people would not think that she's from a liberal background, but relative to the Satmar Hasidic community, she's from a much more liberal background. And that documentary has been compressed to 13 minutes of people's testimonies of their first experience with intimacy as Orthodox Jewish couples and has been published by the New York Times as an opinion documentary this morning. And I just wanted to chat with you guys about that. Hear if any of you have watched it, what your thoughts are, and maybe reflect a little bit on what I think as well. So, good morning. I'm happy you guys are here. It's 2:15 in the afternoon in the UK. Hi, Witch on Wheels. What happened to your broom? Here, I wake up very early in the morning and I'm ready funny. I'm sorry. I'm really not a funny person. I shouldn't try. Okay. So let me tell you what happens in this documentary. Essentially, um, Rachel Elitzur herself, I think, had 4 to 8 dates in the Orthodox Jewish community and found the wedding night to be really traumatic. Later she got divorced and she became a documentary filmmaker. Her first documentary is about her desire to stop covering her head after getting divorced and her parents having a really hard time with it. Her father, in particular, being very against her uncovering her head, even though she's a divorced woman, them insisting she needs to keep covering her head. In part, I think, because of community norms, in part because that's what is expected and therefore considered right. So it's like social pressure mixed with expectations built into out of what's um, the familiar and her trajectory as she's insisting on uncovering her head and feeling like um, wearing the head covering of a married woman is impacting her ability to get remarried, to go out, to be a single woman, which is what she is. It was an interesting documentary, but her second documentary was much more sensational, if we will, and made a lot of waves in Israel. And when I was in Israel, someone said to me, "Oh, there's this documentary about Orthodox Jewish couples that talk about their wedding nights and how traumatic it can be, and that some couples actually end up trauma bonding where they get close to each other's as they get married and don't have proper sex ed and have to figure it out together. And that experience of being so young and figuring it out together creates a trauma bond and they become close through it." And I was very intrigued by that. I think it's very different from the narrative we usually hear, which is, oh, it's traumatic and it creates all of these issues in life and um, uh, creates isolation and a bad start to a marriage. And it was very believable to me that some couples would in their youthful innocence, figure out intimacy together and through all of that grow closer. And I was interested in it. So I reached out to Rachel. She sent me the full documentary. I watched it. I interviewed her. And I have not yet published that interview. I was holding it off and waiting for the New York Times Opdoc, which she asked me to do. I did publish it for members, but I'll probably publish it soon. And she shares about the process of making it, what motivated her. And one of the things we talk about is the use of the term rape. She feels that uh, getting married the way she did was, I think she used the term rape. I hope I'm not misquoting, but definitely some people in the documentary use the term rape, which I wanted to hear some more of her thoughts on. Interestingly, there's, I think, a man in the documentary who said he felt he was raping her and he was raping his young wife. He really didn't want to do it. And he said essentially, now this woman is told to spend her life with her rapist and to love her rapist. That's obviously very strong language, and I'm not sure what I think about it. I would not use that language on my own wedding night, although I do think that a lot of trauma can arise from insufficient sex ed, from lack of comfort with the undressed body and from being strangers. For me, these stories sound very human, very real. I'm touched by them. Different couples, different individuals with different stories. Like one woman says, I didn't understand what the big deal is. I didn't understand what the excitement is. I was like, my my body was there, but my soul wasn't. So this woman had a essentially disembodied experience. But while she tells it, she also reflects that the young brides around her talked of their wedding nights differently. And this is what I think is so valuable about raw, real testimony. You catch glimpses that you don't catch in these pre boxed up stories that are like the wedding night was awful and I was shocked and we were strangers, and these unorthodox style stories that are told for the clicks, that are told almost like in a template of what you're supposed to expect to hear. When you sit down and you give people an opportunity to tell their stories in an unscripted way, and you just listen, you'll start to hear pieces of stories um, that um, I'm sorry, I have no idea what's going on in the comments. I just was looking at it to make sure that um, we don't have a reception issue, and it seems something is going on in the conversation. I'll look at it in a minute. But I think stories like the woman who talks about feeling disembodied and referencing to her social circles being excited gives you glimpses of different perceptions, even though by definition a documentary like this where people tell their stories is probably going to reflect traumatic stories. Who's going to step up and tell their stories? Probably the people who were deeply impacted. And I think that's valid. I like to hear stories from people who feel it strongly, who felt it strongly. Usually, when I criticize, it's because I feel like the stories are coming from a place of trying to get clicks, of trying to tell a story that the audience wants to hear instead of a story that is the genuine raw experience. And some of the stories in this short Opdoc are so raw and unexpected, and that makes it feel so real to me. An example is this couple. The guy keeps putting his arm onto his wife's back and playing with her tichel strands, with her headgear strands, and trying to comfort her, be there physically for her while they talk about something that was clearly so difficult. And it's so clear that he's in tune with her. So it's surprising, it's fresh that he's listening to her, he's empathetic to her. From the beginning, he was trying to tell her to relax, but at the same time, it's still a traumatic story. It's still a story of her having had a really hard time with their first night and not being able to relax. And that's so human. And part of what I wonder as I listen to it is, how far is this kind of experience from the universal experience of first sexual encounters, which can be, I'm sure, traumatic and um, difficult for people from all walks of life. I don't know if exposure to pornography from a young age, what does that do? How does that change things? Or if exposure to Disney stories, how does that change things? How does being comfortable with your body make things better or worse? um, how do expectations set by media make it better or worse? I don't know. I don't really have a frame of reference for comparison. I just kind of listen to something like this with a sense of empathy, of trying to hear the raw story unfiltered by our biases. And I think um, that's what makes it, like, for me, when I feel like I'm touched by it, is when I feel like it's just someone telling their story. So that said, I have no idea if you could hear any of what I just said. So I'm gonna look at your comments. Um, A Gross said, yes, yep, as an Orthodox guy, view this is rape, as you 99% of the time cannot say no. So the term rape is, I think, raised by a couple of people who see the wedding night as rape, um, because you cannot say no. Um, Rona says, "Good morning. God bless you. I want to come take your tour one day. Please do because I'm planning to do less tours in the future. So please come while I do it." I feel like we are friends because I watch most of your videos. Oh my God. Okay. I have become real friends with quite a few people, and it's been really interesting to get to know the people who watch my videos, but I don't think I have seen you before, Rona. Um, so Searching Soul says, "Was your experience traumatizing?" I would not use the term traumatizing, although I think life makes an impression on you and that shapes you, and we can use the term trauma for that. Losing a child when I was 19, that was traumatizing. And what I mean by that is it's cast a long shadow on my life in ways that are like direct grief, but also indirect ways, in ways that I feel like it's seeped into different aspects of my life and created unhealthy um, like reflexes. And for me, that means I have a very strong fear around health, that I can have a really hard time keeping um, health fears in perspective. I had a really, really, really difficult pregnancy with my son, and I can get really scared with little symptoms. That's what I call trauma. I don't feel that my arranged marriage acidic wedding night has created that kind of long lasting effect. I'm just speaking for myself. Um, I don't feel its shadow on my life. Um, I think um, I don't think it was this enormous moment for me. There are these moments in my life that were large and which were these pivotal moments in my life, and that was not it for me. Um, there were other things in my life, be it while I was acidic, or there were huge things that happened since then that were so much larger. Like experiencing poverty after leaving the Hasidic community as a single mother is probably one of the most profound experiences in my life. I don't have a YouTube channel about it, but it's everything. It's cast this enormous shadow on my life. And my wedding night as an 18-year-old bride was not on that level at all. So I wouldn't use the term trauma for me. Um, Ronry says, "I'm catching strays." I don't know what that means. Okay. Um, Marianne says, "Good morning from Southwest Missouri." Okay, I love that. Blast Furnace says, "I'm autistic, so physical touch is an oddity for me. I've avoided it so much in my 20s. So, in the most intimate of situations, with all the hype around it, it's almost anxiety provoking new territory." I hear that. I hear that. I think we are all different, but there are especially some people that are especially different. And this goes with sexual orientation, sexual desire, rate of processing, and being comfortable in your body. For instance, I have a very slow processor. I even see myself in my videos how slow I am to react. And some people just react so quickly and acclimate to environments so quickly. If we're all so different, cookie cutter societies can work for those who are not so different. But for those who are different with different sexual orientations, different ways of processing, different ways of being in their bodies, yeah, it creates different needs for different people and a result different, very different experiences. Um, so your piece about your divorce made me cry. Yeah, that was very, very emotional. Jen says, "We did hear you." Also, Zelda, thank you so much for letting me know. Also, Blast Furnace for saying this is riveting. I don't know if it's the comments or the conversation. Any of you have watched the Opdoc and have any thoughts? Please leave a comment in the video after the live or right now. One thing I would love to hear from you before I wrap up this live is what are your thoughts on the trauma of the first sexual encounter, not in an Orthodox context, in other contexts, other religions, other closed religions, maybe arranged marriages, Indian arranged marriages. I hear a lot about that. Other religious, like let's say um, Mormon. I meet a lot of Mormon people or ex-Mormon people I recently had on my tours. These kinds of closed religions, I don't know if closed religion is the right word, or if you grew up totally sexually liberated, if you will, totally Western with parents who talk openly about sex. How does that change things? Is it euphoric? Is it wonderful? Is it still difficult? What are your thoughts? What are your experiences of um, how first sexual encounters uh, or go down with different socializations? Be my um, educate me. Be my source of different perspectives from I'm used to hearing about. Martine, I'm so happy to see you here. You're always so generous to the YouTubers you follow. I have to say, I'm so touched by viewers who have a certain sense of, I don't know, gratitude, seeing what that a content creator extends something of themselves and receiving that with so much um, generosity and grace and kindness is very sweet. Um, will I ever talk about my poverty trauma? I suppose when I figure out how to talk about it in a way that um, I can be heard. One of the issues when talking about poverty or talking about any challenge whatsoever, but I think especially poverty, is people can hear it um, and shut down. They can hear us, oh, complaining. Oh, you're just asking for money. Especially when I was struggling, I found people don't want to hear you talk about the fact that you don't have food for yourself and your child. They're like, "Oh, next. I don't this is making me look down on you a little bit, and so I don't wanna spend time listening to this." I think finding the right way to talk about it, that you reach people, that people don't feel like you're knocking on their door or like, mm, pulling away. I see it also when people on socials post asking for help. There's a pulling away. So for me, talking about difficult times, I would want to find a way to reach people instead of pushing them away. And I don't feel like I'm in a place where I have that kind of language to talk about some of the really hard times I went through after leaving the Hasidic community. Just being a secular person in the secular world, things that are like so much more larger in my life than a lot of the things you'll hear me talk about here. Like as a content creator focused on a lot of Jewish and Hasidic stuff, I feel like you see that side of me. You don't see the side of me that's a secular woman in the wider world going through life as a single woman, interacting with men and the dating world and making it on my own and being very stubborn and independent. All of these pieces, I don't feel like I share. And you see the things I love, my hobbies, my just my life. There's like a big part of my life that I don't share, and a part of why I don't share it is I'm not sure I have the vocabulary to share them at this time. I happen to be a very open book, talk about myself and things very comfortably. I'm not like a private person. I'm very comfortable sharing. Um, oh, hi, John Harvey. Um, John is the prime cultural documenter of UK Stamford Hill Hasidic Judaism and a very, very special human being with a great, big, enormous heart. And I'm always happy to see you in the comments, and all of your work that you do is really amazing. just a curious person who understands the value of learning about others without judgment, and also great love for animals, which is my assumption. um, in cases of autistic ADHD, I think is what that means, spectrum overlap, where people like me and close friends developmentally delayed, had first sexual encounters much later in life, a very profound sense of validation can come about. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Um, Theramingo Asis. I grew up secular and have been watching your videos with my mom now that I've been going to Chabad. You've helped us understand a lot about the nuances of Hasidic life, and we both thank you. I am so very grateful for this beautiful comment. You're so welcome. I have been getting closer to Chabad, not as in going to Chabad, but just learning more about Chabad. I'm probably going to publish my first video about Chabad in a few months, where I just go as an outsider. I am not an expert on Chabad, and I'm very clear about that. Um, and I'm enjoying starting to learn, and I am curious to see how Chabadniks are going to totally flame me for how I cover it. They are very opinionated lot, but definitely a very different world from the one I come from. Yaakov, I just saw your live stream. Good morning. I'm still here. I'm almost gonna go because I have a meeting at 10 a.m. New York time. Jen says, I know Catholics usually have counseling before marriage, but I doubt the sexual aspect is discussed. I think it only goes as far as birth control that is approved by the church. Yaakov says, if you need background on Chabad, reach out to me. Thank you. Hershey Fishman, who I know because I randomly ran into him on the subway. I hope that's okay that I say that. Just on the subway, ran into him. Says, I'm Hasidic. Our wedding night was amazing for both of us because I was excited for it and confident. My wife expected it to be awkward and was thrilled that it turned out to be so good. Just our experience. Wow. Am I wrong that I know you, Hershey? Am I confusing you with a different person? Um, Please forgive me if I am. But thank you so much for sharing that. We never hear these kinds of stories. I think by default, we're going to hear the stories that are not positive. And so I really appreciate you sharing this. Maida says, Chabad will embrace you, Frida. I grew up conservative, but now belong to a Chabad house and love it. Very inclusive, accepting, and caring. I've heard from Hasidic people in like Satmar say, be careful with Chabad, they don't suck you in. I find Chabad interesting. I'm starting to learn more, and the more I learn, the more interesting I find them, not in the sense that I want to be embraced, but more as in I'm starting to feel like I'm grasping, I'm understanding. As long as I didn't understand Chabad at all, it wasn't as interesting as when I'm starting to piece things together of what makes Chabad tick. Well, I'm gonna wait another minute or two to see, or a couple more seconds to see if anyone else has any thoughts. And if not, I'm gonna bid you all farewell and go on my day. So nice to see some of you here, friends and new friends, people I know and people I don't know. I have to say, one of the biggest gifts of doing a YouTube channel has been making friends, some of my closest, dearest friends through my work. And I really appreciate all of you. It's been nice. It's been really nice. All right, so I'm gonna head out. Then, if you see this after the live and have thoughts about the subject, please do share it in the comments of the video. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'll be looking out for your comments. I don't always get to interact with the comments, but I do love to read your comments, and so I appreciate all the thoughts you share. All right. Take care, all of you. Ciao.